Is Grace Jones the ultimate performer? She sings, she can dance, she even appeared in a James Bond movie. And on top of all that, she was one of the world's most iconic musicians in the 1980s. But who is she really? That's the question a new documentary by British filmmaker Sophie Fiennes is trying to answer. Bloodlight and Bami follows Grace Jones over a period of 5 years. From visiting Paris for work to seeing her extended family in Jamaica, it's an intimate documentary that looks at Jones as she is now. So what does the film tell us about the performer's relevance in 2017? Here with me to talk about the Grace Jones effect is Showcase's Miranda Atty. So Miranda, tell me, what makes her more than just another singer that was famous in the 1980s?
Well, I think that this word perhaps gets thrown around a little too often in celebrity circles. But for Grace Jones, it's true. I think she really is an icon. And she has the kind of career that isn't just limited to music. So we've seen her in James Bond, we've seen her performing in Conan, we've seen her all over the stage. I mean, she's really an amazing performer. And what it was is that Grace Jones, she's known for being very androgynous. She's known for being a very strong woman. And that comes across through her costumes, it comes across through her makeup, but it also comes across through this persona that she has, which is quite alien-like in a way. She's not very human, she's kind of superhuman. And I think that's what made her impact so incredible since the 80s up until now.
So tell me about this documentary. What made it such a big deal?
Well, like I mentioned, it's Grace Jones' kind of alien nature, and I think what this documentary is trying to do is really show another side to her. It's trying to show the woman and not just the performer. And it's also the way that this film's done this. So Sophie Fiennes followed Grace Jones for 5 years. So it's not just like the typical documentary you might think of where there's a lot of talking heads, there's a lot of interviews. There is absolutely no narration. It's just following Grace as she goes about her life. She's traveling many different countries, and the camera's very kind of up close and personal. So I think it offers a really different side of Grace Jones that we've seen before.
So tell me what the most interesting part of the documentary was to you.
I think probably the most interesting part is Jamaica, when she's talking about her extended family, she's meeting her extended family. And one of the things that Grace has never really talked about that much is the fact that she suffered abuse from her grandfather. So this film sort of hints at it, it skirts around it, you see it in Grace's interactions with her family members, but it's never kind of explicitly raised because, as I mentioned, there is no narration. But you do sort of get a sense of Grace, and you see the reason she's so strong, the reason that she's so formidable, is because she's actually channeling her grandfather, who was in fact not a very nice person to her, but she's taken that experience and she's turned it into something positive.
This is a part of another wave of recent documentaries about stars. We saw one about Whitney Houston, Lady Gaga, and now obviously Grace Jones. Do you think these films offer real insight into their lives?
It depends on the star and it depends on the style of the documentary. But I do have to say, I think that these documentaries are very in vogue at the moment, but they're also very, very carefully curated by the stars themselves and by their team. So if you see it with Lady Gaga, her documentary was all about her personal journey. You know, she spends a lot of the time without wearing any makeup. She's really letting you in. But she's only letting you in so far. She wants you to see these certain things. So she's still trying to manage the public's perception of her. And I think the good thing about this documentary with Grace Jones, she wasn't like that. It's very different. She doesn't really care what the public thinks of her. She doesn't care how she comes across. You see her in these raw moments, whereas I think that documentaries like Lady Gaga, even Whitney Houston to an extent, they're very, very curated.
Do you think that seeing her in these raw moments will have any effect on her career?
She's not at the peak of her career anymore. As we mentioned, the 80s really were her heyday, but she's still performing, she's very strong. And I think this is kind of just going to bring her back into the public consciousness. And I know she's got some tours coming up, and I think this is a great way for the public to be reminded that Grace Jones still exists and she's still an icon.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Miranda, for that great review.